Hello, students, and welcome to class. Today, we're going to be traveling to what's called a Pure Land. This is an idea. A Pure Land is an idea that is commonly found in the branch of Buddhism that we started learning about last week, Mahayana Buddhism. A Pure Land is kind of similar in some ways to a notion of heaven, a Buddhist heaven. The difference here is between, it's not a heaven that one goes to kind of just enjoy forever. This is a heavenly land that has been produced through the power of a Buddha. Remember that Buddhists have more kind of celestial, cosmic, miraculous powers in Mahayana Buddhism. To be born in a Pure Land is to be born in the presence of a Buddha, and there's many Buddhas in Mahayana Buddhism. Mahayana Buddhism will emphasize many, many Buddhas. So once one is born in that Pure Land, one can then receive teachings on the Dharma directly in the presence of a Buddha. By doing so, one can then go on to achieve enlightenment. Let's take a look a little bit more at Mahayana Buddhism and the concept of the Pure Land. So we're recalling this is Mahayana Buddhism. This is the Buddhism that we typically will find in places such as such as China, Japan, and we had learned earlier about the Theravada Buddhism, which is more predominant in places like Cambodia, Laos, Sri Lanka. And Mahayana Buddhism has an emphasis on this ideal of the Bodhisattva. Okay, so we learned about the Bodhisattva throughout the semester. The earliest concept is from the Jataka tales, where this is the career of what leads to the birth of Siddhartha and what are the qualities perfected by Siddhartha in previous lives that enables Siddhartha to become a Buddha. So the Jataka tales are stories of one particular bodhisattva, or rather series of births of a bodhisattva being, a being that blossoms into a bodhisattva, then becomes an enlightened being. So bodhisattvas, in short, are Buddhas in training. And let's take a look at some more key ideas associated with that. But before we begin, this is a common picture. This is the figure of Avalokiteshvara, or Chenrezig. This is, and in China, there's a feminine form called Kuan Yin. This is a Buddha or a bodhisattva that has thousands of eyes and arms. And why? Why are you going to have thousands of eyes and arms? That's to look out and help suffering beings. Okay, so bodhisattva is these are Buddhas in training. To become a Buddha, because a Buddha, according to Mahayana, these are beings that have the most power to help and guide other beings on the path of liberation from samsara. To do that requires two things. They must realize emptiness. We learned a little bit about emptiness last class. This is the idea that ultimately there is no self, there is no object that exists in a way that is permanent and eternal. Well, why is that important? The mind that has fully comprehended, fully realized emptiness, that things lack this eternal property. And that's kind of what I wanted to emphasize, emptiness. It's not like hollowness or a spatial idea in Buddhism. It's an idea that things lack an eternal state of existence. And what is the proof of that? The proof of that is this concept of dependent origination. For example, my coffee cup here. Let me just get a sip of coffee. This good coffee. Well, that coffee, it is a dependent origination. Somebody grew the beans, someone did the grinding, they put it in the little, what do you call it, little coffee pod. And then I had to put it inside my machine, pour the water, put some milk in here and a little bit of sugar. This is my third cup this morning. I like my coffee. But see, I made the coffee, someone else, they grinded the beans, somebody else grew the beans and shipped the beans. It was a whole process that led to this coffee being here. The coffee is not something that just spontaneously arose and exists as some eternal property. This is not a philosophical idea here necessarily. According to Buddhism, we have this psychological disease, and that disease is ignorance, and that at some level, we believe the things that we think bring us happiness are permanent. They're going to always exist. Realizing emptiness frees the mind from that tendency to want to grasp onto something that is eternal. Now, bodhisattvas are motivated by compassion. This is also one of the ideas that gives Mahayana Buddhism its specificity. Many religions have a concern over an afterlife. The afterlife in Mahayana Buddhism is not an afterlife where the individual is seeking bliss and happiness. Rather, it is the case that for themselves. So I'm not seeking my own happiness, my own freedom, according to Mahayana Buddhism. The ideal is to become a being capable of liberating all other beings. And what is that being? Well, we've learned in Buddhism, you do see ideas of gods, ghosts, demons, all kinds of creatures, but the highest form of a being is a Buddha. A Buddha has perfect wisdom, perfect compassion, and can guide the suffering individuals to this path of enlightenment. And they're motivated by this extreme compassion for all beings, not just, there's no idea of friends or enemies or family. Everyone is equal in the eyes of a Buddha, and everyone receives equally this great compassion. This is the controversy between Mahayana and Theravada. Theravada has the ideal of an arhat, a being that has gone through a path of purification and has perfected the Eightfold Path, or rather perfected the practices and qualities associated with each of the Eightfold Path, built on a foundation of, there's 8 parts to this, but remember they can be broken down into 3: morality, meditation, and wisdom. Arhat has perfected those qualities, but Mahayana says there's something beyond being just getting to nirvana. beyond nirvana is the possibility of becoming a Buddha. Bodhi sought to travel the path of the Bodhisattva involves a path of perfections. And these are our 6 perfections: generosity, ethics, patience, efforts, concentration, and wisdom. Let's take a look at each individual. Shantideva says, if the perfection of generosity frees the world from poverty, then how would it be that the protectors of the past attained it if there's still poverty in the world today? Generosity, giving stuff. Maybe wanting to get rid of poverties. And this is what Shantideva says as well. You know, we all have stuff, but there's a practical limit on how generous we can be. There are things that we wish we could give, you know, our friends and loved ones that we just don't have. But this is what Shantideva says about that. Shantideva is a great Buddhist master associated with the Mahayana tradition. He's from India. Shantideva says, the perfection of generosity is said to result from the mental attitude of giving up everything one owns to all people, together with the fruit of such actions. So it's a mental state where nothing is mine. Everything that is within my sphere, within my realm of possession, I have the intention to give it to everyone. So it's a mental state where one is not attached to anything. And we can think of the story going back to earlier on. We look at the Jataka tales, and we look at the second to last birth of the Buddha as Prince Vesantara. And Vesantara was the prince who gives up everything, including his family and everything. And so it's the intention that nothing is mine. I'm not greedy. I don't possess anything. And it's developing that kind of mental attitude. So the perfection of generosity involves overcoming selfishness and attachment to material things, and a corresponding willingness to give everything one has to others. One might not have the capacity to do this. You know, we may not have the capacity to give the money that someone is looking to borrow from us. We may not have the capacity to feed everyone who's hungry, but we have a desire to and a willingness to, should we have that capacity. And it's intention. So could we remember with karma, what determines whether karma is going to create good, bad, or neutral is ultimately the intentions behind our actions. So we're perfecting the attitude of generosity, not the ability, because we may just not have the conditions to give food and medicine and shelter to everyone, but we wish we could, and that's the ideal of generosity. All right. This is more quotes from the Buddhist master Shantideva. One who wishes to safeguard the practice must scrupulously guard the mind. The practice cannot be safeguarded unless one guards the wavering mind. All right, let's take a look at what he's saying here. The perfection of ethics. This is ethical conduct. Ethical conduct is the foundation of protecting the mind. This is refraining from negative karma and really has 5 aspects: no killing, no stealing, no lying, no sexual misconduct, and no intoxicants. These are the 5 perfections. These are the 5 aspects of perfecting ethics. And a bodhisattva has vows along with these other 5 that they will work towards liberating all sentient beings. And this is a common phrase that one hears in Mahayana Buddhism, a sentient being is any type of being that has a sense of self-awareness. So animals, hungry ghosts, gods, a bodhisattva is seeking to liberate all of those beings from samsara by obtaining the capacities of a Buddha. And refraining from negative intentions. Okay, anger destroys, this is Shantideva, the Buddhist master, destroys all the good conduct, such as generosity and worship of the Sugatas, the Buddhas. It destroys that one has gained in thousands of aeons. And you can pause and read the rest of it. So here, Shantideva is talking about the dangers of anger. And anger, to overcome the negativity of anger, is to perfect the quality of patience. Patience is the remedy for anger. So perfection is ultimately achieving a state of no anger. And anger can destroy good karma very quickly, according to Mahayana Buddhism, and this is what Shantideva is emphasizing. To become a Buddha can take many, many, many lifetimes of work and perfecting these different qualities. And Shantideva is saying that one moment of anger, one moment of giving into anger, you could do something that we regret. And we can maybe perhaps think of examples when we're angry and we've done things that we genuinely regret. Well, in a moment of anger, that can destroy all of the training. And it's like you're training to become a Buddha, but you get angry and you punch somebody in the face. That one action causes one to spiral downwards, and one has to then pretty much start the training again from the very start. So it's a very dangerous force. And that's why Shantideva will emphasize the importance of patience. Here's a quote on efforts. Effort is another one of the perfections. And Shantideva says, one who has thus become patient should cultivate effort, because awakening depends on effort. There is no merit without effort, just as there is no movement without wind. Okay, so the perfection of effort. To become a Buddha is not just taking, a couple months of effort, according to the Mahayana, not just a couple years, not just a lifetime, but many, 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 many lifetimes of work to get there. And remember, the goal is not to get there for one's own well-being, but to become an enlightened Buddha, because through the wisdom and compassion that a Buddha possesses, a Buddha has under, their that they are able to use. As a Buddha, one is able to show perfected love and compassion and truly help others. A Buddha is a state of being that is meant to benefit others eternally and to eternally work for the benefit of others. And that's the concept that we find in Mahayana Buddhism. So to do that, effort is one has to be really enthusiastic about becoming a Buddha, thinking about how other beings suffer. And to overcome that suffering of other beings, the best way to do that is to become a Buddha. This is going to include diligence in the spiritual practice, the practices of morality, meditation, and wisdom. And ultimately, it's a work driven by the desire to benefit others. It's for this to be a Mahayana practice, the effort of trying to achieve enlightenment has to be with this mindset as I'm doing this so I can help all beings who are suffering, from the hell realms to the God realms to the human realms, to the jealous God realms, to the hungry ghosts. I am doing this work, this training, so I can liberate all these beings by becoming myself a Buddha. That is the desire that is supposed to be the motivation behind the practice of Mahayana Buddhism. All right, and then concentration. Having developed effort in this way, one should stabilize the mind in meditative concentration. So concentration, many of us are easily distracted. We live in, but without concentrating the mind, one is not able to engage in the work and put in the effort because one will be distracted. So concentration is really what one develops through the practice of meditation. It involves mindfulness. Mindfulness is an awareness of what we are doing with our body, our speech, and our minds. Whether it's drinking a cup of coffee, being mindful, being in the moment. That's good coffee. And then also remembering, keeping our eyes on the prize, and that is becoming a Buddha, focusing the mind on the goal of Buddhahood. And focusing on this goal because we're trying to benefit everyone, not just ourselves, but all beings. All right, and then we're going on to our next perfection. The sage taught the entire system for the sake of wisdom. The sage is the Buddha. Therefore, with the desire to ward off suffering, one should develop wisdom. And this is our final perfection, the perfection of wisdom. This is realizing emptiness. This is the cure to what is represented by the pig, the animal symbol of the pig, or ignorance within the wheel of birth and death, which we've seen throughout the semester. All right, so just a few key points on Mahayana Buddhism. Its base, as we learned from last lecture, is a set of scriptures attributed to the Buddha, and this is called the perfection of wisdom literature, which in Sanskrit is the Prajna Paramita. There's some key ideas. This is the notion of emptiness. Things lack an eternal self-arising property that we can hold on to, that we can grasp onto. And our minds have a tendency, especially the things that we deem as pleasurable, to want to grasp onto those things, hoping that whatever is bringing us pleasure and happiness will exist forever. Even though we might know it at one level, at a deeper level, psychologically, we still have that tendency. It is through experiencing and seeing things as empty, as lacking this eternal property, because everything that exists depends on parts that are in flux. And there's a saying that things that are made of parts, well, they fall apart. The mind that has cultivated and realized this deep meditative state of emptiness, shunyata, sees things made of parts, understands that they will fall apart, and no longer has a tendency to grasp and to crave for external objects. Compassion, this is again the desire. This is bodhicitta. It is the mind that is geared towards becoming a Buddha so that one can alleviate the suffering of every last sentient being. A sentient being, again, is any being of the 6 realms that we've learned about. And these are beings that have self-awareness, they have consciousness. Mahayana Buddhism emphasizes this ideal that all beings have the nature of a Buddha. So Mahayana presupposes that every being, whether it's our pet dogs or our friends or these hungry ghosts that might be wandering around, every being has the capacity to become a Buddha through through achieving and perfecting wisdom that realizes emptiness, and through perfecting the compassionate intention, what's often called the altruistic intention, to liberate all other beings. A bodhisattva is a Buddha in training, and a Buddha in training is seeking to perfect these different perfections. All right. So the three jewels, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And remember, to take refuge in these jewels is to take refuge in the divine teacher who provides, I don't like to use the word divine because it has a lot of kind of connotations, but the enlightened teacher, the Buddha, who has provided the guidance to become a Buddha according to Mahayana Buddhism. And that guidance, that teaching is called the Dharma, and it is the members of the Sangha who preserve those teachings. Now let's take a look a little bit at the Mahayana Buddhist notion of what a Buddha is. So we learned that artistic depictions of the Buddha come late. Now, this is a depiction of Siddhartha, and well, Siddhartha, who has now become the Buddha. And in Mahayana, there's many, many Buddhas. Now, how many bodies do we see? Take a close look, see how many bodies you can identify. I think there's only one in this internet picture that I found, but according to Mahayana Buddhism, Buddhas have 3 bodies, all interconnected. A Buddha has what's called a truth body, and we're going to go into all of these in detail. An emanation body and a complete enjoyment body. Let's take a look at the bodies of a Buddha. And there's these 3 bodies that enable the Buddhas to aid all beings. So these bodies exist as forms, well, I don't want to say as forms, but as manifestations that all work together for the sake of helping others. Let's take a look here. The truth body is not physical. It is rather an omniscient consciousness. This is the all-knowing mind of a Buddha, and it is emptiness. It is this quality of the freedom from being fixed and eternal. It is this emptiness, which is the capacity to become enlightened. Because beings lack an essential nature, an essential eternal state, that is who we are. Because of that, we're not doomed to be perpetually born again and again in cyclic existence. This emptiness is the capacity to become a Buddha. And the truth body is the nature of the Buddha. This is the internal capacity to become a Buddha. It's often described as a nature of clear light. That's the metaphor used to often describe the truth body. Emanation bodies, this is what Siddhartha was according to Mahayana Buddhism. These are temporary physical forms that we can see. And Siddhartha would have been an example of that. This is regular physical forms. And the reason why these a Buddha might take on a temporary body is very specific. It's to teach normal beings the Dharma. And some question, does it have physical limits? Do these bodies experience pain and aging? This is a debate in Mahayana Buddhism. the complete enjoyment body. These will appear in Pure Lands, and we're going to learn about Pure Lands very shortly. This is more the celestial cosmic body. Select disciples who have, through lifetimes, perfected certain qualities, like those associated with the six perfections, when they see a great master, they might see this particular body. This is a body that can appear to select disciples through meditation, through visions, through dreams. And it's free from any physical limitation. And it can have multiple manifestations. So one Buddha can manifest multiple complete enjoyment bodies to different meditators, to different seekers of the truth. And it's the object of advanced meditation. And we'll learn a little bit more about that next week when we look at Tantric Buddhism. All right, now we're going to look at one of the major. In this lecture, we're going to look at Pure Land Buddhism. Then I'm going to post another lecture on Zen Buddhism. Mahayana often has different sub-branches. And in East Asia, so this is Korea, Taiwan, China, Japan, the most common sub-branches are Pure Land Buddhism and Zen Buddhism. Now let's learn about Pure Land Buddhism. Pure Land Buddhism is very common in this blue area here. So what is a Pure Land? It is a special realm created by a celestial Buddha, so the Buddha of the complete enjoyment body, for the benefit of sentient beings. This is a creation, is a proof of a celestial Buddha's compassion, infinite karmic merits, and unbound mental power. So this goes to the question, why become a Buddha? Because the Buddhas have this mental power and energy that normal beings don't have. And through that power, they can do things like create special realms, a Pure Land, where beings can go when they die. And this is, a Pure Land is a heaven, a paradise, but it's a paradise with a purpose. It's not like a permanent vacation. It's a paradise to practice and perfect the Dharma, to practice and perfect morality, meditation, and wisdom. And this is an in-between state between samsara and Buddhahood. To go to a Pure Land is to go to a place that's beyond samsara, but that's not quite enlightenment. But from that state, one is able to obtain Buddhahood. And why is that? Because one aspires to go there, because then one will be taught and trained directly by a Buddha. So this is samsara, this is our wheel, and then this is an enlightened Buddha, and then in between the cycle of birth and death and the state of Buddhahood, according to Mahayana Buddhism, these Buddhas can manifest alternate universes. They can do this because of their tremendous infinite karmic merit, their unbound, limitless mental powers. And this is an example of a Pure Land. These are beings in samsara are going to a realm where they will be taught by a Buddha. So how does one go to a Pure Land? Devotion to a celestial Buddha, and we'll see one or two of these. Mantras are prayers or incantations, usually invoking the name of the Buddha who presides over the Pure Land. Then what happens, there's two parts. Through one's karma, one is able to move in the direction of a Pure Land. But there's a second part, and that is the celestial Buddha presiding over the Pure Lands will kind of meet someone halfway or more than halfway and then pull them out of samsara into the Pure Land. So it requires work and effort by individuals, but it also requires kind of the saving grace of the Buddha. So celestial Buddhas, this is Amitabha, and this is the most probably popular of the Pure Land Buddhist. And this is a Buddha of unlimited light, rules over a Western paradise called Sukhavati. That's the name of Amitabha's Pure Land. It's said that his Pure Land is very easy to access, and to do this, Buddhists must chant the mantra, the incantation Namo Amitabha Buddha. And it's pronounced slightly differently in different cultures and languages. And this is very, very popular in Vietnam, Japan, China, other areas, and many other areas where Mahayana is prevalent. So this is Amitabha Buddha, and that is the Buddha of a Pure Land. And I think we're going to probably end this section here, but I do want to show you one more thing, and that is the most common question I receive in Buddhism. Take a look. This is the most common question I receive. Many ask me, why is the Buddha fat? Well, Siddhartha, most artistic depictions don't show Siddhartha as the being of Siddhartha who becomes the Buddha as being fat. In fact, we can see Siddhartha on his path would starve himself and become emaciated. You can see his ribs. This is not the Buddha. This image right here is not the Buddha that we had been learning about throughout the semester. This is not Siddhartha. So who is this? Well, this is a being commonly found in Mahayana Buddhism, and this is Putai. Not Siddhartha, but Putai. And around the 10th century becomes very popular in East Asian Buddhism. So that's China, Japan, Korea, Vietnam. He's seen laughing. And why is he laughing? Well, he's not laughing at us. He's not laughing with us. He's laughing because he experiences the joys of enlightenment. Some say that this being is an incarnation of Maitreya, and the Maitreya is the future Buddha, a Buddha that's yet to come. So he's laughing, he's jolly, he's pot-bellied, he's a wandering teacher that sometimes different beings will encounter. And I call him, and this is kind of my analogy here, he's the Buddhist Santa Claus, or stories of him giving, blessings and gifts. He's this jolly, pot-bellied figure, sometimes depicted surrounded by children. So Putai is the individual that is seen as the quote-unquote fat, laughing Buddha. This is not Siddhartha. This is common to the Mahayana tradition, and this being exists to help and bring joy to others, which is the ideal of Mahayana Buddhism, is liberating all other beings. Not caring for ourselves per se, but cultivating and training ourselves to become a Buddha capable of benefiting and bringing joy and happiness and freedom to others. All right, well, that concludes this lecture. Next week, we will finish up our class by looking at the Buddhism of Tibet and the Himalayas, called Vajrayana, sometimes called also Tantric Buddhism. And I will post one more short lecture on Zen Buddhism for this week. In the meantime, please stay safe, stay well, and stay tuned.